It is?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm on a tight schedule today. That's why I'm
I'll give you a few
watching.
minutes to kind of. But one of the things I created this talk because I have so many clients that even after training them for years, they'll still say something to me like, "Oh, so I don't need cardio? I've been running, I've been doing this," or "Oh, isn't oatmeal healthy?" I'll say, "Oh my gosh, it's very difficult because part of the sort of like once you, and I'm going to get into this in the first few slides, part of the flywheel of truths and realities. Once somebody believes something to be true, it's very difficult to like get them out of that mindset.
Habit is stronger than reason.
Yes, and I have a really great slide to talk about that. So I started thinking about creating a slideshow, a presentation where I can sort of help clients through that. And I find that Barbers and I were talking that it's good to present some information and then stop me, like just stop me right in the middle of what I'm saying if I'm not being clear. Because I would rather, if I have 5 fitness minutes, I'd rather you guys came away completely understanding my position on just one, than walking out of here going, what is that? I don't really get it. Hi. Hi, I'm Fred. Fred. Nice to meet you. There are some free paleo beef jerky here. You can grab a brochure and a fridge magnet.
Did you want one?
Oh, no, thank you.
Protein 10 grams.
Yeah, this is turkey.
Total carbohydrates 0 grams. Good. I can
What's
do
that?
this.
Do you really? Making your own is the best. That's for sure.
Yeah, she's an excellent cook. How did you meal?
Oh, it was outrageous. I was both nights.
You were
I had
great.
5 extra people one night. I couldn't stay in the apartment. I had to go to another room.
Yeah,
I got to call you about
And
my
I gave to the
refrigerator.
I'm
doorman,
presenting
my parents,
a kind of a new presentation that I
everybody.
created, discussing some myths surrounding exercise, recreation,
It's a good
and a
feeling.
little bit about
Satisfaction.
nutrition. So, did you have a question about that? Or? Yeah.
I have a cold, I'm like headache.
That's good. That's all right. Should we maybe, maybe I'll give them a few more minutes with time.
Yeah, they
I'll
probably,
wait.
some will stagger and like. Did
All
they
right,
make
I'll come
the
back then.
Did they make the announcement? Tell her to make the
Okay,
announcement.
do what you have to do. It's
Carol.
okay with me if you come and go. It's perfectly okay. I know. But that.
Oh, there comes Francesca. Yay.
Hi.
Good.
Getting a fit?
Just by listening.
It's like living the
Cool.
book.
Hey, how you doing?
Did they make
Hey, Steve.
the,
Fred, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Francesca, did they make the announcement?
Yes,
Hi, how are you? Nice to
Oh,
meet you.
yeah.
Oh, they made it? Okay. You had,
This or an egg white omelet,
oh,
yeah.
is this you?
Yeah, I'll probably have to move it to video too.
Back.
Oh,
That's okay.
sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. It's fine. I'll just move it
Taking
to.
up the whole can.
There are
Tell
some
me it's
complimentary paleo, no crud in them jerkies if you'd like.
So I just pass one over, thank you.
Oh, good, great. And let me give you.
I like anything free.
And you're around the corner, right?
Yes, I have my facilities on 78th and Amsterdam, right in the corner.
It's the toaster.
Hi. That's him. That's
Wonderful.
him.
Wonderful.
Hello, Tony. Hello, sir.
We should do this instead of lunch.
Exactly.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying before you guys came in, I was saying that if so, this is kind of, I mentioned to you this is kind of a new talk. So if you have any questions, stop me in the middle. If I'm in the middle of a sentence, just say, "Hold on, what did you say? I didn't get it," and I'll explain it as best.
Great.
All right.
Because we never do that.
No.
Beef jerky.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
here.
Jerky.
Is this
It's
like?
really good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. Free range turkey steaks. Fabulous.
They're good, yeah. They're good. We sell them at the gym so that
Free range?
after people
Okay,
train,
Barbara, send me
we don't
one
want people like
turkey.
walking to the bagel
Good,
shop
I like
being
to slide
bagel.
things
We
down.
want them after the workout to get some
Thank
quality
you.
protein because it's very important to
Rest
have
that.
Oh, sorry.
good enough protein.
Yeah.
Should have brought some more.
Want
Next
one
time
for
I'll-
Ho Chi?
No.
So I kind of like to start off the talks by giving away a gift for the correct answer to a fitness or nutritional question. So here's the question. And the first person who raises their hand will, what weighs more, a pound of muscle or a pound of fat?
A pound of fat.
No. It's muscle.
A pound is a pound.
No.
The architect gets it right.
Oh, she gets a prize.
Yeah.
But that's one of the fitness myths you hear a lot, that muscle weighs more than fat.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that a pound of muscle takes up a lot less space than a pound of fat. A pound of fat is just, there's much more water, and not water, but more kind of air in it. So that's one little tiny fitness myth. Like, it's sort of like, yes?
But
Yes.
I have heard many people say they gain weight, they look slimmer, and they say it's because it's muscle.
That's correct.
Well,
Because a
Because it
pound.
takes up less
He's saying a
space.
pound of fat takes up much more, less space. I mean, more space though.
Right. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail
so
if
it's
I
not
can.
wrong.
No, it's not wrong. In fact, very often, like with my clients, they'll say, well, my number one goal is fat loss, and we'll take 10 pounds off of them. I mean, we'll take 10 pounds of fat off of them, put 10 pounds of muscle on them and bone. And then, so she gets on the scale and she's 140. Here we go, let's do that now. And then 2 months later, she gets on the scale and she's 140, and she goes, what kind of program is this? This is terrible. But their body composition is completely different. So when you take 10 pounds of fat off and put 10 pounds of muscle on, you're smaller, but you're just as dense because of the exchange of fat and muscle.
But it takes much
Your dress
longer
size has changed.
to be
Completely.
muscle.
Yeah, your whole body shape
And
changes.
that's the most important thing.
What's that?
That's the most important thing.
And that is the
Your
most,
dress
body
shape.
composition is the most important thing.
Your clothes fit.
So I don't know how much you know. I think you sent an email around, but just real quick, so a little bit about me. I'm certified by the American Council on Exercise. I wrote 2 books. One, I co-authored The SlowBurn Fitness Revolution. This book here with my co-authors are New York Times best-selling physicians, Mike and Mary Dan Eads, who wrote Protein Power Life Plan, the 6-Week Cure for the Middle-Aged Middle, and about 20 other books on health and fitness. And I also wrote a book called, I didn't bring it with me, called Strong Kids, Healthy Kids, which is a way for parents and caregivers to teach children how to eat healthfully, and that lifting weights for kids is good. There are a lot of myths, which I didn't get into in this talk because there's too many myths to get into, but a lot of people think that children shouldn't lift weights because it'll stunt their growth, it'll hurt their growth plates. None of that is true. In fact, the opposite is true. So if you know any kid, especially for obese kids who just don't feel like they can be active, strength training can be very, very good for them. So, and what else? Oh, and I already told you, a couple of fitness facilities, one here on 78th in Amsterdam, and in each of your brochures, you get a complimentary session. So if I wow you enough and you want to come try it out, you may. So when I was, hello. Hi, I'm Fred. Welcome. Thanks for coming and listening. So this is, I was saying earlier, this is about fitness myths and nutrition myths. A new talk that I'm developing. So when I was looking around the internet, I thought, how can I relate this to you guys? So I thought, there has to be a ton of myths in real estate. And I looked them up, and I think, are these correct? Yeah. And a lot of the times, and it hasn't happened to me, but I know that Linda was telling me that sometimes she tries to talk to these folks, and it just doesn't sink in about the realities of some things. And in my industry, it is probably, in health and fitness, the worst. And perhaps it's the reason why we're seeing people getting heavier, more diabetes than ever before. So I love this quote. And to cut it into a shorter version, it's like, the truth is easy to kill, but a lie, well told, is immortal. And so it's very difficult times to get people to really see the realities of certain things. So I'm going to try today. I have 5 myths. Even if I get through one, if I can help you understand it, that'll make me happy. So this is probably, and I started with this because this is probably the #1 myth people think of. They think that, oh boy, so I would say 98% of my clients, when they fill out their goal sheet, #1 is losing body fat. They just want to get leaner, they want to get thinner. So I address this first because most people believe that in order to do that, you have to burn a lot of calories. You have to run on the treadmill for an hour or whatever your cardio equipment of choice is in order to burn significant calories so that you can lose weight. The truth is, though, that if you are actually exercising vigorously enough to burn enough calories to make a difference, like in order to burn, I once calculated, to burn 1 pound of body fat, you'd have to walk briskly from here to Hartford, Connecticut, and back.
Wow.
Right.
I
So,
don't like
and that's not going to happen.
No.
Right. So, what people do instead is they'll run on the treadmill as briskly as possible, work a sweat. They look at the little device and it says, "Oh, burned 800 calories," and they go, "Oh, great." But they're thinking 800 calories of fat from my belly, 800 calories off my butt. But that's not what's happening at all. What you're actually doing mostly is burning. Oh wait, I went too fast. Oh right, it's here. Sugar from within the muscle. So you store. There's two different types of fuels available to you. One is the sugar that's stored within your muscles, which is called intramuscular glycogen, and then the fat in your fat cells. When you exercise vigorously enough to burn enough calories to make a difference, virtually all of the calories you're burning are the sugar from when you're within your muscle cells.
That's
Almost.
anaerobic.
What's
That's
that?
anaerobic. That's where you go to the anaerobic range.
Yeah, well, in order for you to burn mostly fat, you have to exercise at this level of intensity. And then you're pretty much burning mostly fat. So like I said, you'd have to do that from here to Hartford, Connecticut and back to burn 1 pound of body fat. So the more vigorous you exercise, the more your body says, hold the fat, let's pull the sugar from your muscles. And if you're doing that, after your hour on the treadmill, all you have to do is eat a half a banana and a glass of skim milk, and the sugar's right back in your muscle cells. And so you're basically running on the treadmill like a hamster and getting absolutely nowhere. Now here's the, you could say, any of you could point to me and say, hold on a second, Fred, and this is my next slide, what about those people who they're running every day, they're running 15, 20 miles a day, and they're thin as a rail? Okay, well the difference is, if you look at these folks, yes, it's true, they burn a lot of body fat because they're exercising so much, which none of us are going to do, but they also, they also do that at the expense of their lean tissue. And that is the last thing you want to do, is lose muscle tissue in the process of losing fat. Because then you're just lowering metabolic rate, you lose bone density, you lose strength, and that is certainly something that we don't want to have happen. And remember, stop me if you have any questions at all.
What is
So-
the sugar in your body, is that important?
Yes, it is important. Sure it
Important
is.
to have that?
Yeah, if you
Sugar
had-
that's in there already.
Correct. Like if I took my magic wand of sugar and sucked all the sugar out of your muscles, you couldn't move. Right. It's mainly there so that, like, if we were Uganag thousands of years ago, and all of a sudden we turn around and there was a tiger, that intramuscular glycogen lets us go and go. Your body fat stores are not touched. Now you have about 2,000 calories worth of intramuscular sugar to you, and that's why marathon runners, when they hit mile 15, 16, 17, they call it hitting the wall, because their body is just about out of intramuscular glycogen. And then it has to shift over to fat burning, and that is an extremely slow, arduous process for the body. And this is why a lot of athletes will blood dope to get more glycogen into their muscles and do other things. And then some people genetically just have more, and they just do better.
More muscle.
Yeah, they have a greater ability to store more intramuscular glycogen than other people. Like some men are 55 years old and still have a full head of hair. It's really just a genetic component that really is not changeable. But the fact of the matter is that's how your body utilizes energy when you're exercising. So when you're doing exercise, you don't want to turn from a big pair into a little pair. You want to transform. I used to be able, somehow I had a slide where it flipped that over. You want to transform your body, not just shrink. So again, as we talked earlier, losing weight really isn't the issue. It's body composition changes that are really most important. So this is a client of mine. This is with absolutely no aerobic exercise whatsoever. And this is strength training with me, a total of 30 minutes a week. And in this picture, she's 40. And that's the backside.
She changed her diet also.
And we're going to get to that. Yeah, because diet, no, I was going to say, you beat me to it. Actually, it was going to be for another tote bag. What's the most important thing? I kind of blew it
What
now,
you put
right?
in your mouth.
It's what you put in your mouth. I'll think of another question for the giveaway. And this is a gentleman that I trained also. You see he was in already kind of good shape, but then through altering how he ate and actually cutting out his aerobic activity,
It's amazing.
he actually improved. quite great.
How about the benefit for the heart with aerobics?
I'm going to get to that if I have to. I'm going to try to go. I don't want to go too fast, but now the other myth is, and we're talking about diet now. Were there any questions on the first part? Did that make sense about exercise and burning sugar and burning fat? Why exercising vigorously really has no effect on fat loss, and can actually, if you do enough of it, actually start to degrade your muscle tissue? No? Okay. So, what do we hear always with diet? Carbs. Carbs, sugar, that's what your body needs. You need to eat oatmeal in the morning, you need to have your pasta, you need to have complex carbohydrates for energy. Well, that actually isn't true, because if you, and this is the fridge magnet I gave to you, if you're eating healthfully, meaning making sure you're getting enough protein and that your carbohydrate sources are mainly from vegetables and fruits, then when you do that, if you eat in that manner, that means you're keeping your total blood sugar low. You got one? Did I run out? I think I might have run out.
Sorry.
I'll bring you more. Just that. How do we get fat in the first place? That's the question. Why are some people obese? The people say they eat too much. Well,
They eat processed foods.
and that's more. I'm going to give you the bag for free. You're saying so many things correctly. I don't have to pick a question.
You were generous.
What?
You were generous.
I came in second.
And the analogy I use is often, let's say a 10-year-old kid walked in the door who was 7 feet tall. No one would say, oh my God, that kid's eating too much. Now, he'll eat a lot because he's 7 feet tall, but nobody's going to say, oh my God, he's eating too much. Why? What would we think? He's got a pituitary problem. He has a growth hormone problem. There's something hormonally off with him. But if a 10-year-old kid walks in who weighs 300 pounds, what do we think? Kid's eating too much. When it's really a hormone issue as well. The primary hormone that is the problem is insulin. Insulin is the hormone that tells the body to either store calories as sugar in the muscles or store it as fat. When your intramuscular glycogen stores are filled and you eat too much foods that raise blood sugar, your body has to then convert that extra sugar to a triglyceride, to a fat, and then shove it in the fat cell. The bad thing is that your body can make more fat cells, like that. And so the more food you eat that raise your sugar, like bagels and pasta and rice and potatoes, even sweet potatoes, breakfast cereals, skim milk.
Root vegetables.
Well, it's very difficult to eat enough vegetables for the amount of, what's that?
I said root vegetables.
Root vegetables, right, starchy vegetables. Right. So the more of those foods you eat, the higher your blood sugar levels go, the higher your insulin goes. And so you're essentially, the language you're speaking to your body is, hey, could you please store fat for me? I would like you to store more fat. And we have that as a way to, in case of famine, store a lot of fat. And isn't it interesting how seasonally, most of these starchy root vegetables and fruits are towards the end when the winter's coming, when we want to store some fat. So this is a way of telling your body, by keeping insulin low, you're telling your body, do not store these calories as fat. Use them for energy instead. And it's not like you can't have a sweet potato. It's not like you can't have a bowl of pasta every once in a while. But there are people who eat that way for every meal all the time. And that's where they get into trouble. Any questions on that? So, a lot of the times when I have clients and I sit down and look at what they eat, with women especially, and I'll give you my theory as to why this is, they under-eat their protein. And the reason for that is, I think, doctors, and although it's changing now, a lot of healthcare professionals are saying adopt a low-fat, no-fat diet, because if you do, it'll help your heart and it'll help you lose fat, because eating fat makes you fat, none of which is true. But when you lower your fat intake to a low-fat, no-fat diet, what are you doing? Where is all of your fat found? It's found in your meat. There's no fat in vegetables. There's no fat in fruit. So when you lower your total fat intake, by default, you must be lowering your protein intake. There's no other way. It's the only place where fat is found. So when that happens, you wind up decreasing the total amount of amino acids you take in. Here I say protein amino acid minimums. So for someone like me who weighs 180 pounds, I need minimally 75 grams of protein a day just to keep me at me. And then in order to produce more muscle tissue, I need to have at least 86 grams of protein, more towards 100 grams of protein, because I have more muscle on my body than most men do, because I strength train. Now, if I had a new client the other day, and we were looking at what she ate, and she wasn't even getting 30 grams of protein a day, and she weighed 150 pounds. And she was wondering why she was so soft and squishy, even though she exercises. I just came back from a fitness conference where they showed a group of men and women. It was a large group, 180 people. They ate the US RDA for protein and lifted weights, and at the end of the 12 weeks, nothing happened, even though it was a vigorous weight training program. Another study had about the same amount of people, and they trained in a high intensity fashion. They were told to eat 200 calories more in protein above the US RDA. At the end of the 16 weeks of that study, they all gained significant bone tissue, muscle tissue, lost fat. So what I tell my clients is, if you're gonna come in to train, you're gonna give me a lot of money for me to train you. If you don't obey this, you're not gonna get any results. And even if you're not training, if you're not meeting your minimums, you're gonna slowly waste away. It's like the gray in the beard or the gray in the hair. You don't notice it, but you wonder why. You're 30, then you're 40, then you're 50, and you realize why you move in the chair and you're going, oh my gosh, what's going on here? That's what's going on here. Little by little, you're losing muscle tissue. Hi.
So to maintain muscle mass correctly as we age and go forward, we have to keep increasing protein as we go along age-wise?
At least maintain it for your body weight, and then there is some evidence to suggest that once we start getting older, like around 55, 60 or older, well, I'm gonna be 56 this year, your body starts to not metabolize proteins as well. So if when we were 20, we ate 100 grams of protein, we metabolized 100 grams. At 60, we eat 100 grams of protein and we're only metabolizing about 80. Why that is exactly is unknown, but I think my guess is because we don't reproduce our cell, nothing happens as well. So this is the reason why. Now, when older folks are told by their doctors, eat cornflakes, don't eat that bacon and eggs, you're gonna get a heart attack, they wind up severely under eating their protein. And you can see older folks from 60 to 70 is like night and day when they eat like that. 70, if they make it to 80, they can't even get out of the chair. So that's why, so if anything, when it comes to nutrition, the protein intake that you should take in that you should really consider and look at. I'll have clients take pictures of their meals and just send them to me so I can go good, good, uh-oh. And that's something we help all our clients with. All of our instructors are very knowledgeable about that. And it's the #1 thing we try to get our clients. In fact, when vegans come to my gym to train, I say, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, Fred, not doing it. And I say, well, I respect your philosophy, but your philosophy doesn't give a you-know-what about your physiology. You're either meeting the minimums or you're not. So I've often turned people away. I've said, I'm not training you. Just waste your time.
So the things like tofu and beans and all that stuff that they're eating are not the same kind as meat and fish and chicken and all that?
Right, because they don't have all the essential amino acids, and vegan diets don't have all the essential amino acids and or in their proper ratio. Animal matter is perfectly designed for that. With plant matter, it's extremely difficult. And in fact, if you're going to eat rice and beans, we figured out that you needed to eat almost 2,000 calories more a day in plant matter to meet your to even get close. And that's why often you see a lot of vegetarians and vegans that are heavy, because they're eating so much starch, rice and beans and things of that nature. And actually, it's kind of easy to get the protein you need. For example, a small hamburger, 4 ounces, is almost 30 grams of protein. For a lot of women, that's half the protein you need in a day. A chicken breast is 30. So it's not hard to get it. You just have to make sure you're getting it. And you have to get it on a daily basis. If you're good Monday, good Tuesday, bad Wednesday, bad Thursday, bad Friday, good Saturday. And a lot of my clients tell me that just from the change in the increase in the protein alone, sometimes as little as just a couple of eggs a day, or a can of sardines, and that's it. They feel immensely better. and this is just a menu that a lot of people say, you sound like Atkins, Fred. Atkins, like, I'm going for bacon all day. And I say, no, there's actually a wide array of foods that you can eat, eating the way that we suggest, or as is suggested in the magnet. And this would be a typical meal, a day's meal for an individual. You see lots of vegetables, nuts, seeds, you see seafood and beef and eggs.
No chocolate? Dark chocolate?
Actually, you
Have to
can.
have sweet. Have to have it.
Yeah.
With your
And when
wine.
you eat like this, satiety is high. So that little bit of chocolate at night's enough. You never feel hungry. In fact, when you eat like this, often clients, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're like, well, I'm not even hungry. And the reason why is because that insulin that I showed you, your insulin is low. So what is your body utilizing mainly for fuel? Fat. So your body is eating, it's eating your own body fat for fuel. Because you told it to. Now, here's what clients say to me. But Fred, it's hard. And I say, you got to choose your heart. It's all hard. You want to be a successful real estate agent? It's hard. You want to be a successful personal trainer? It's hard. You want to be a doctor? Like I'll have doctors go, oh man, this is something like as hard as medical school? Really? You think so? So the truth of the matter is that in order to do this, it does take a lot of discipline. But that discipline is easier when your nutrient intake is actually dense, because then your body's satiety is high, and it's very difficult to lose body fat on a low-calorie diet because you're freaking starving all the time. You can't sustain it. And you turn from a big pair to a little pair. We want to build muscle tissue in the process of losing fat at the same time. And that's what we specialize in at the gym. That's stupid. So another myth, any questions on that myth at all? Or and if you do, if it pops into your head,
I just felt that some fruits have quite a bit of sugar.
They do. And you do have to be careful. If someone is very over fat, they do have to be careful about their fruit intake. I mean, fruit is helpful. It is. Vegetables, it's all helpful. It just depends on the individual. Like especially if you're someone who eats a lot of dried fruit, that's a lot of sugar. Or bananas, that's a lot of sugar. I mean, there's more sugar in 12 ounces of orange juice than there is in a 12-ounce can of Coke. So a typical, and with my Strong Kids, Healthy Kids book, what do most typical American give their kids? Bowl of cereal, skim milk, glass orange juice, 2 slices of whole wheat toast, jelly on the toast, sliced banana on cereal. They're eating like 70 to 80 times the amount of sugar for breakfast than they need in a week. And then we wonder why we have an adolescent obesity problem. I mean, Michelle Obama, God love her, had the right idea, but her kids got to move more. People got to move more. It's not about movement at all. I can make a paraplegic thin if they were over fat by feeding them healthfully.
Right.
So 2 parts of this. One, I don't know if everybody knows, a lot of people think weightlifting is just to build big muscles. No. In fact, strength training produces every single solitary health benefit that you could imagine. It increases endurance, aerobic capacity, bone density, posture, strength, blood pressure, cholesterol profile. There isn't a single thing that strength training can't do. So that's one of the reasons why we only do strength training at our studio, because we don't want to waste your time. If you want to take a walk in the park or run in the park, great, do that. I mean, do what you want to do for recreation, but it's important to understand the difference between exercise and recreation. It's 2 completely different things. They're not the same. Do you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, about
Yeah,
stronger
right.
bones. There is now a lot of scientific research that is actually not conclusive on this getting stronger bones because of exercising.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it
Yeah.
sounds that more and more they are not so sure that it does any good.
Yeah, and that mainly because it's what I was discussing before about not getting enough protein. If you have one group of people and they exercise properly and eat cheese doodles all day, and the other group exercises properly and meets their protein and fatty acid requirements, these people are going to gain, these people are not. So researchers won't put diet into the research study. They'll just look at exercise, they do the exercise, they do a DEXA scan of their bone and muscle tissue, and they see no benefit, and they go, exercise doesn't work. Well, what'd you feed them? And there are many other components to that. But strength training for bone density, lifting weights, the weights don't have to be heavy, but they can't be light. But lifting weights is the single most potent way to increase the density of the bones, because when you're lifting a weight that's heavy to moderate, you're causing the bones to bend, and that's what causes them to increase in density. You can do it through jogging, but jogging will pulverize your knees and hips. So there's no need, you can do it that way, like you can slam dance to improve your bone mineral density, but it isn't the wisest way to do it. Now, what people don't realize also is that every year you're not doing something to strengthen yourself. There's no such thing in life as stasis. If you're not actively making yourself stronger, you are actively becoming weaker. It's just a very slow, gradual process, and you don't really notice it. And often you don't notice it until it's too late. You slip, you fall, you break your hip, and you don't realize the weakness, especially in our world where you're sitting around all the time. You're not out on the farm doing something strenuous. So per decade, research shows about a 3 to 5% loss, which lowers your metabolism. And you wind up eating the same food and wonder why you're getting fatter. For women, it's especially important because you start out with less lean tissue than men do. And that's the reason why women are the ones who are often afflicted with osteopenia and osteoporosis. Men don't often experience it because we just start out with more muscle than you guys do. But it's interesting to note that as the years go by, as you lose muscle tissue, your metabolic rate goes down, and so it's just sort of a vicious spiral downward. But it can be corrected. And it's corrected specifically by, so if you look at this is like this, and inside the muscle you have little fibers, almost like a telephone cable. Within the cable itself there are little, what do you call them? The little, right, exactly. So when you're doing something to what I call cause a positive tissue adaptation, what you're doing specifically is you're increasing these little guys within your muscle fibers. Now when you increase those guys, and the way you do it is by training in a fashion that brings the muscles to near exhaustion. So for example, you see people in the gym and they go 1, 3, 5, and the muscles start to burn and they stop. Then they wait, talk to their friend, get a drink of water, and they go back and they go 5, 6, put it down. So the different muscle fibers, those little fibers I showed you, you have little guys, the aerobic guys, medium guys, the triathlete guys, and the big guys, the sprinters. These are the ones most responsible for giving you bone density, increases in strength, muscle tissue, metabolic rate. If you don't train to the point where you cannot do another repetition, whether you're training with me or training on your own, you never get to these guys. And then you don't reap all the benefits you could from strength training. And very often instructors, trainers, well-meaning trainers, they mean well, they just won't push their clients because they don't understand. And this is called Henneman's size principle. We don't get to vote on this. It's basic fact of exercise physiology. Very often personal trainers will just say, oh, okay, do 10, and then they go over here and they go over there, and they're not really paying much attention. I think it should, to me, I think it's just innocent ignorance.
So it shouldn't hurt, really.
What's that?
It shouldn't hurt.
Well, yeah, that no pain, no gain is correct only if the pain is the right kind of pain. And that's that feeling of burn, like what they call lactic acid buildup in the muscles. Not all muscles feel the same discomfort, but yes, if your exercise program is fun and easy and enjoyable, and you're not feeling any kind of, then you're not doing anything specifically to cause positive tissue adaptation. Don't get me wrong. I think it's good that people do pastime activities they enjoy. You have to. It relieves your stress. It's good for you. And when you become stronger, you're able to play tennis better. You're able to golf better. You do 18 holes, and you're like, let's do 9 more. Your back doesn't hurt when you're done. So I'm not saying this replaces physical activity. I'm saying this supports it and promotes it. So the real objective in exercise is to train to that point where you're completely fatigued as best as you can do. And what you should do, like even if you don't plan on joining my gym, which is fine, come and use the free session so that you can just feel what we mean. And then when you go to the YMCA, you go to your gym and your building, whatever it is, you can get a better idea of kind of how you might want to do it. Now this goes back to being bulky. So this is a gal that we trained. Notice the more definition. You don't see a big, bulky, muscular person like that. All the men and women who you see who are like this They're on drugs. And the women too. And it's a shame because kids are doing it.
Yeah.
My G.I. Joe doll when I was a kid, it's like a normal dude. Look at the G.I. Joe dolls now. I mean, they're like steroid-ridden, and little kids are getting this idea that, oh, I want to be that. And it's a shame. It's really a shame. So, and so I say to a lot of my female clients, even if you begged me to make you look like a female bodybuilder, I couldn't. Now, this is now a lot of people say, but I'm older. What about that? I'm not going to be able to do that when I'm older. Well, here's a 40-year-old triathlete. This is a research paper on triathletes that lifted weights. So here's the 40-year-old triathlete. Here's the 70-year-old triathlete. This is a cutaway of the thigh muscle. This is the 70-year-old who doesn't weight train. A physician couldn't tell the difference. He'd say, well, okay, doc, which is 40, which is 70? All right. So it doesn't really matter. I have some clients, you ever hear of the businessman, Hank Greenberg, ex-CEO of AIG? He's been my client for 15 years. You should see him on the leg machines. If you just went like this to his face and saw his leg, they look like they're 40 years old. So any age can benefit from resistance training. Now we were talking about also cardio. Now here's another myth. When you get on a treadmill, so let's say you try to run 3 blocks and you're out of breath. Then you get on the treadmill, you get on the stair stepper, 3 months later, you could run 3 miles. What actually happened? Most people think their heart and their lungs got stronger. That's not the case. They don't really change much at all. What actually happens is within the muscles, you have little organelles called mitochondria. They produce energy, and they are what creates more energy, endurance, stamina, wind, whatever adjective you want to use. So for example, if you took my heart and lungs out of my body, and you took Lance Armstrong's heart and lungs out of his body, and you put my heart and lungs in his body, you put his heart and lungs in my body, could I win the Tour de France? No. Because his conditioning is far greater than mine in his muscles. But with my heart and lungs in his body, could he do the Tour de France? Sure. Nothing wrong with my heart
So
and lungs.
you're saying that when you do this on the treadmill so many times and all this and that, the other thing, that you're really burning sugar?
Within the muscles, and if you're doing it vigorously enough, your body's going to say, oh, we need to become a little better. So it'll create more mitochondria. That's why you cycle 4 or 5 minutes and you're out of breath. You think it's your heart and lungs because your heart's pounding, but you just don't have enough mitochondria. Like if I took my magic wand of mitochondria, went zing, 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 and gave you all 10,000% more mitochondria, you'd all beat Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France. Wouldn't matter what your age was. Now the thing is, when you strength train, remember we talked about the myofibrils? That's where, I mean, there's mitochondria in your eyeballs, but when you strength train, you increase the myofibrils, more myofibrils. The mitochondria live in the myofibrils. So the more muscle fibers you create in your legs and your arms and your chest and your butt, the more mitochondria you have. So the more aerobic power you have, the more endurance you have, the more wind you have, the more stamina you have. So you don't have to do aerobic exercise in order to improve aerobic cardio capacity. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So again, this is a matter of saving time. If you're in the gym with me for 30 minutes once or twice a week, you're getting all you need. Right? Remember we talked about the flywheel? It's like, this is where people go, what are you talking about? He's not a doctor. What the heck's going on? I'm just reporting the physiology. I don't get to vote on it either. And in fact, when I've talked to cardiologists and cardiac surgeons about this, they go, yeah, that's right.
But they don't tell their patient.
No, they don't, and often they don't because, and I learned this from a few physicians who are clients of mine, a doctor can't tell a client to do something that's outside what's called customary and usual activity. Because if he says, go strength train, and you get hurt, he's liable. Because his influence as a physician is so strong. So he'll say, doc, what should you do for exercise? I say, walk. You have to walk anyway. But it's true, like, so you're never going to hear doctors, and they're not experts in exercise anyway, nor should they. They have other stuff to think about. So this is a little meme. I'm sorry. Yep.
Interval training.
Yeah, interval training is a way of training, putting your muscles through hard work. So interval training, have you heard of that? It's called HIIT. Have you ever heard of that? It's getting on a bike, doing 30 seconds of slow, and then going as fast as you possibly can for a minute or two, and then cooling down and you're done. So it takes 3 to 5 minutes and that's it. So really what you're doing there is you're just making your muscles work as hard as possible. The same thing is true for strength training.
But they say that's how you lose weight also.
I know,
Isn't that?
but you, I know they say it.
Who's the they?
Right.
Plus.
Instructors.
But
Now,
it
a
is
lot-
good, but you're saying it is good to make your muscles work hard because
Yeah.
it goes more mitochondria.
Absolutely.
So the interval training is better than non-interval training.
Absolutely. The problem with interval training is think of the knee joint or the hip joint. Grind, 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 over and over and over again. So the amount of wear and tear on your joints over time doing that is far, 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 far greater than when you're strength training properly. And there are other benefits that strength training gives you that the interval training doesn't. So I don't tell people not to do it, I just say understand the consequences of it, and are you making the smartest choice for yourself? That's all. Using science, to quote Carl Sagan, using science as a candle in the dark. Don't you like this meme I made? You know who that is?
No.
That's Pudgy Stockton. Pudgy Stockton, way back in the 50s, was one of the first women to say to women, lifting weights is good, it's feminine, it makes you strong, makes you confident. So, you know, just as a recap, when you make yourself stronger, you can do anything better in life, whether it's real estate, whatever it is that you choose to do. Do we have time for one more?
Oh yeah, you got plenty of time. You're good.
Okay. Any questions on that, on the strengthening part of it? So,
It's kind of counterintuitive.
totally. Yeah, and it's counterintuitive because we've been led to believe these other things. So it's only things, often when we're taught something, it's counterintuitive, only not because it's true, but because just we've been made to believe it.
Right.
Any exercise is counterintuitive.
Well,
You don't want to, you know,
Well, you know what?
it doesn't want to exercise.
combined with what you eat, this is the program, it's
Yeah.
gotta be strength training and what you eat.
Right, and then everything else in life should just be recreational, fun, enjoyable, whatever it is you want to do. I mean, there are people who, their enjoyment is knitting, playing the violin, playing the piano, reading, building little models. And you say, let's go for a hike, they're like, no, I'm building this model. So, yes?
How do you feel about yoga?
Yeah, well, actually, this is kind of going to get into that a little bit. But yoga, if you know the history of yoga, it's not exercise. Yoga was designed to bring yourself into yourself spiritually, to calm yourself, to get in touch with your center, and to use certain movements to make that happen. Almost like active meditation in a way. These days, well, I know all these people have turned yoga into exercise. So a lot of people think yoga is to increase flexibility. It's never what it was meant for. Never what it was meant for. And I'm going to talk about some of the myths of flexibility too.
While you're on the strength side, guys,
Yeah.
so what's your take on all the CrossFit stuff?
Well, if a client said to me, hey Fred, let me ask you a question. How can I injure myself quickly and as efficiently?
That's what I thought. That's what I
It's so
What is it,
I
CrossFit?
know so many people
Uh,
that CrossFit.
Do one thing, then do another thing?
Yeah, but it's
Very
big groups and it's a rah-rah.
It started in 1998.
They all
Jumping
go.
up and down
It's cycling
waves.
or whatever they're doing.
Oh, speed cycling?
This is CrossFit. What can you do? Well, I can do this, that, and the other thing. And then I go, I can do it better than you. And you go, yeah, let's see. And then I do it better than you. And you're like,
For sure.
and then you try to do it better than me.
Right.
And that grew into a worldwide phenomenon. Nothing particularly wrong with human, and that's the Olympics, right?
Right.
Right?
Tennis too.
Yeah. So CrossFit is like kickboxing. You're gonna get hurt. But if you want to do it, far be it for me to tell you not to, it's going to have strengthening, you're going to improve the strength of your body in the most dangerous way possible. That's, like if you want to increase the density of your skull, you can bang yourself in the head with a hammer. It'll work. It will, right? Not a good idea. So now, I know we talked about Pilates. That's why I didn't say lie, I said fit. Because Pilates, especially Mari Windsor, have you heard of her? She was one of the ones that kind of pioneered, who kind of brought Pilates into the mainstream. And in her infomercial, she said, haven't you always wanted to have the long, lean muscles of a dancer? Well, now you can with Pilates. No, you can't. Right? No matter how much I brush my hair ain't growing back. The only way you can actually take a, now, and I'm going to show you just, I didn't put a slide up here, I should have showed you. When you see long, lean muscles on a person, they're born that way. Like, you ever go to the beach and you see these people with what we would consider to be beautiful bodies? They're born that way. You see dancers, you see them go up on their toes, they have these beautiful calves, they're born that way. Ballet didn't give them their calves, they can do ballet because they have those calves. It's like, and people say, oh, Fred, that's not true, I've seen, I said, well, listen, it's like this. Look at dogs. Look at the pit bull. Does it go to the gym? It's born that way. And look at a poodle. It's born that way.
I remember an interview with Paulina Partakova, the swimsuit model, who said she never slept a moment in the gym.
Probably
She had
eats
gorgeous
anything
body.
she wants.
Yeah, anything she wants. Like that I don't believe.
And there can be a genetic component to that too with eating. Some people are, remember we were talking about insulin, some people are born extremely insulin sensitive. They actually seem to be able to eat whatever they want and they don't get fat.
My brother.
There are people who smoke cigarettes their whole life, they don't even cough. Nothing happens to them. That doesn't mean that cigarette smoking is safe. So genetics plays a huge role. Now with stretching, here's how, oh, do I have to give it? Yes. So whoever gets this question right gets a complimentary copy of my book. So here's the study that was done. They took 3 groups of people, 20 people in each group, and they did a sit and reach test. Remember from school way back when? You'd sit on your butt, you'd reach forward, see how far you could touch your toes. And they measured it. Then they split them into 3 groups. One group got heat for 10 minutes underneath their hamstrings. The other group put ice underneath their hamstrings for 10 minutes. And the other group had nothing underneath their hamstrings at all. Anybody want to wager a guess who was able to stretch further at the end of the
Ice.
10 minutes?
Nothing. Nothing.
You said it first.
What? Teeth?
Ice.
Ice?
Really?
He said it quietly.
So proud of
My
you.
effect.
Yeah, your effect worked.
I don't even know what I'm doing. You pass that down.
Thank you.
It was the ice. Now the reason why, people say, well, Fred, wait a minute now, I couldn't touch my toes, and I went with Jen, and she did a stretching program, and about 2 months later, I could touch my toes, no problem. What do you mean I didn't increase my flexibility? Well, what you actually did was become accustomed to the pain of the stretch. And that's the reason why when you do stretching exercises, you find that you are better able to move through a greater range of motion. But the same is true when you're strength training. So whenever you strength train, here we have a picture of, this is my gym in Montclair, of my instructor training a client in back extension exercise, and then she does the opposite where she does spinal flexion exercises. So no matter what exercise you do, if you're doing the exercise through a full range of motion about all the joints of your body, you're creating stronger muscles, which will allow you to move your joints throughout a greater range of motion. You don't want passive extendability. You only want to increase your range of motion with a concomitant increase in strength so that your joints are stable. Does that make sense? So stretching in and of itself doesn't actually increase the elasticity of the muscle. The experience of being able to have a greater range of motion when you stretch is simply because you've just become accustomed to the discomfort of the stretch. Physiologically, you've made no positive adaptation.
So
There's research-
strengthening doesn't really do anything. I
No, it
mean,
doesn't.
stretching.
No, it doesn't do anything particular. It feels good. But often, like you get up in the morning and you go like this, and you go like that, and you do that, or you see your cat in the morning going like this and like that. What is that actually? It's contracting. You're contracting, getting blood to the muscles. That's what feels good. Just passively pulling on your joints, that's not necessarily a good thing to do. In fact, you can, if you do it too much, you can injure the joint, like ballerinas that have a permanent turnout. So as they get older, they lose strength and they have unstable joints. That you don't want to
But
do.
isn't stretching or getting blood to the muscle good to do before you actually actively exercise?
That's a common myth, yeah. No, you don't need to at all.
Doesn't-
If the exercise
Doesn't prevent injury.
No, in fact, it can increase it. And there's some studies with professional sports players that show that when they stretch too much, they're a greater risk for injury because they're causing joint laxity. Like the ligament is what holds the bone to the bone to bone. When those ligaments stretch, there's very little, if any, blood flow in the ligament, and when they stretch, that's it. Now you have an unstable joint.
Is it good
Oh.
to stretch afterwards, after you work out?
No need.
No need to.
No need. Not at all. This is one of probably half a dozen or more studies, well-designed studies, that showed that very often when they tested the joint flexibility, like in hip adduction, shoulder adduction, sit and reach, that when one group strength trained through a full range of motion and the other group stretched, the group that strength trained actually got greater increases in the ability to move their joints through time and space, because muscle is what moves joints. So again, you don't want passive extendability, you want active contractility. Make sense?
But I go to Pilates after tennis because my sciatic nerve and stuff is really stiff.
Yeah. Well, Pilates, if it's done well, is a form of resistance training.
Yeah, that's the machine.
Mm-hmm. In fact, Pilates on the floor without the reformer, you know what they called that before Pilates? Calisthenics. And then Joseph Pilates came along and called it his thing, which is fine. And it is a form of strength training using springs on the reformer. That's okay.
You should probably use stronger strengths.
Yeah, a well-designed strength training program is going to be much better than a Pilates program. You know, like a carpenter is only as good as his tools. You're very limited in Pilates with what you can do. And is it better than nothing? You bet it is. Last myth is that you need to exercise every day. Now you hear this 30 minutes or more every day of the week, right? Well, the purpose of exercise is to cause a positive tissue adaptation. That's the purpose of it. Like, why do we exercise? What's the point? Why? Why about that? Physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, because it de-stresses you, that's fine. That's not really what I'm talking about. The benefits of exercise come when you're not exercising. Exercise is a controlled detriment. You're microscopically breaking muscle tissue down. You don't produce the benefits of a properly designed exercise program for a day or two later. Now, this is a compilation of research. So if I exercise you strenuously for about 15 to 30 minutes, which is about all you need according to the research, even as little as 10 to 15 minutes, we have 15-minute sessions at the gym, where you come at a minute to 9, we start you at 9, and at 9:13, you're done. It's hard to believe, but in that 13 minutes, you can get quite the workout. It takes 24 to 48 hours for your body to go, oh, okay, you want stronger muscles, more mitochondria? Okay, give me a moment, give me a sec. Feed me, and then we'll do it for you. But that's just to get back to baseline. It takes about 48 to 96 hours so that your body actually then produces the benefits from the exercise. And then, within this time frame, some research shows that as little as one exercise session every 10 days, it's not most beneficial, but it's still beneficial. You can increase bone density and muscle tissue and mitochondria exercising for as little as 15 minutes once every 10 days. Yes, you can.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
So can I reach the conclusion by this, that my exercising every day is actually working against me as opposed to for me?
If you're
Strength training every day is no good?
No, it's no good. So, but then you could argue, right? You could argue, so what about the bodybuilders? They're in the gym 5 days a week, and look at them. Okay, the ones that aren't taking the drugs, what are they doing? On Monday, they're doing back and biceps. On Tuesday, they're doing legs. On Wednesday, they're doing chest and triceps. Thursday, they're resting. Friday, so they have discovered a very effective, inefficient way to exercise. Why? They like being in the gym. That's where they go. They don't go to bars. They go to the gym to be with their friends. So you can do it that way. Like I said, you can increase your bone density by slam dancing, but it isn't the safest or most time efficient way to do it. This is the guy that invented Nautilus. I don't know if you remember the Nautilus back in the Nautilus days. But a lot of the stuff that he said nowadays, with more and more research coming out, is proving to be true. So he was sort of way before his time, as Arthur G. was. So we say to our clients, we want to discover the least amount of exercise you require, not the most you can withstand, to get the benefits that you want. And then the rest of your life is just fun. do what you want to do, make money, enjoy the park. Don't waste your time exercising.
And
Here-
what makes up your 15 minutes, let's say, for those types of workouts?
What was the question, I'm sorry?
Like what is made up within that time? Are you kind of rifling through a number of things? I don't get that tape because it sounds like it's about
Well, your
safety, but
Yeah, your instructor has a chart, and you come into the gym, and we put you through 5 to 6 exercises, strengthening your entire body. So you'll do 2 or 3 exercises for your upper body, 2 or 3 exercises for your lower body, designed to increase the strength, muscle, bone tissue of all the muscles that we're addressing.
Do you also compensate for any problems, health problems, issues with the body of individual clients, or is it?
Yeah, as long as it's within the scope of our practice, we can do it. If you come in and you say you have severe spinal stenosis, you're going to have to go to your doctor. We'll talk to your doctor, tell them the kind of exercises we do. So if there's something truly, like if you have known cardiovascular disease, like you have 80-90% blocked arteries, we can't check because we can't. We're not physicians, and God forbid we don't have a crash cart. We can't help you. But barring, like if you just have a bad lower back or you have a stiff neck, there's we've had to turn away almost nobody in the 20 years I've been here. Almost nobody. My last slide. So this is what I like to say to people. If you're not actively making yourself stronger, you're actively becoming weaker. And starting at around age 40 is when you start that aging process. And there's really, some clients will say, well, Fred, I don't need your slow training stuff. I play tennis 3 times a week. No, if you want to play tennis 3 times a week as best as you can and reduce your chance of injury and really enjoy it better, you want to be in the gym for about 15-30 minutes a week, strength training, so that you can do that. One doesn't, exercises, positive tissue exercise is one thing, recreation is another. Any questions?
Right.
Yes?
Getting back to the nutrition and the workout.
Yes.
With so many different diets out there today, does yours follow one pattern closer to another? Maybe? Like you hear about paleo, you hear about keto, you hear about all these different diets.
Yeah.
Some are more protein active and some want you to do less protein. I think you're selling us that we should be doing more protein or appropriate protein for our age.
Adequate protein, right.
Adequate.
So really, truly, if you look at the research on nutrition, across the board, keeping your sugar low is very important. No, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Not even Dean Ornish doesn't agree with that. That's why even the vegan people will say, yeah, no, you shouldn't be eating Pop-Tarts. Right? You should be eating real food. So what we like to say is our way of approaching nutrition is real food. And when you're choosing real food, choose real foods that have the lowest amount of sugar, and don't forget that you need adequate protein. So by default, it winds up being this. Oh, and I did want to say, if you look, it's not that your plate should have a piece of steak this big and this many vegetables. That's caloric intake. Most of the calories should come from your fatty proteins. Salmon, beef, lamb, whatever you like, and the rest should come from vegetables. So sometimes people see this and they go, whoa, I should have like a T-bone steak, but no, that's not. It's just making sure you're getting adequate protein.
I think it follows very closely the Weight Watchers diet, the
Cool.
Weight Watchers ideas.
Yeah. Weight Watchers, early on, as you know, just did points. They didn't care if you got your points from cheese doodles or
No,
anything.
but now
Now-
they're weighted.
Now they're getting
Actually, they're pretty much what you were saying.
Yeah, they're getting on the bandwagon because there's so much research now supporting this. It's hard to get away from it. I mean, it's sort of like, even the ADA is starting to go, oh yeah, we shouldn't tell diabetics to have 35 to 40 grams of carbohydrates at every meal.
Oh.
I mean, type 2 diabetes is type 2 diabetes, well, type 1, but type 2 diabetes is a condition of carbohydrate intolerance. They eat it, they can't tolerate it. So, yes.
In January, after the Christmas holidays and everything, I was a real sugar addict. And I heard a tape by a doctor from Duke University. And he basically said what you're saying. Also that you could eat the fat on chicken, and you could eat the fat on meat. And that those types of fat, get rid of the fat in your body. That seems impossible though, right?
Well, those kinds of fats, think of fats and proteins as the men and women who come into your house with toolboxes. They come in and they fix things. So when you have adequate fatty acids and amino acids from your proteins, you're allowing your body, and cholesterol, you're allowing your body to build itself up the best you can possibly do. So especially if you're adding resistance training to your exercise program, you're just making your body better. And by keeping the sugar low, you're telling your body, use the excess fat as fuel. Let it go. The fat cell opens up, the triglyceride comes out, goes into your bloodstream, and your body uses it. That's why when you eat like this, your triglyceride levels, your blood fats, go down, 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 down. Even though you're eating fat, because you're teaching your body to use it.
And what's your take on how many times a day you should be eating?
It really doesn't matter if you're meeting your amino acid requirements. I could go into that in more detail. Maybe at another talk I'll do that. There are a lot of people who use what's called intermittent fasting. They'll eat their dinner at 7 and they don't eat again until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And as soon as they start to get hungry, because they are eating, by fasting, you're eating the fat.
Right.
Your body is having energy.
But doesn't it matter that you shouldn't be hungry? You should never feel hungry.
And once you start to get hungry, you should eat.
Right.
And then when you
So, I
eat,
mean,
it should be foods that are nutrient dense. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that eating in that manner, and they call it the Mediterranean diet too. It's all the same. Eat real food, eat adequate fats and proteins, keep your sugar low. The end. And strength training.
Carbohydrates.
Well, the carbohydrates that you're going to be eating are coming from your vegetables and your fruits.
Right. I gave up.
Grains and breads and pastas and things should be things that you treat yourself to every once in a while. Try to just keep down. Like people say, oh, I'm never going to have a slice of pizza. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Enjoy your pizza,
Yeah.
but don't eat pizza every day, pasta every day, and rice. And don't. That's.
So I know you're not big on cardio, but what about the,
Well, I am, but not necessarily from traditional aerobic exercises.
okay, but what about the staying in the zone of the 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate as being the fat burning zone? Is that true? I mean,
No, it isn't actually true. Not really. In fact, heart rate has nothing to do with anything in particular that science supports. It's just that when you exercise at that level, you are actually starting to do something beneficial. And at the end of it, you're utilizing a lot of blood sugar. So if you're eating a lot of carbohydrate and you exercise and you're bringing your blood sugar down, that's good. Just don't eat it in the first place. You don't have to worry about it. You know. So
Just don't eat.
It's so easy to
it's
say.
hard.
The other thing you said, and I know it's true too, that vegetables and fruits don't have fat, but avocado, everyone talks about avocado as being fatty.
Avocado is a nut, not a fruit.
Right. I should.
Avocado is not a
It's a
fruit.
rage right
Well,
now.
It's a
I don't.
vegetable, it's not either fruit or vegetable.
Yeah, there are some meats that have very little fat. So I'm not saying all fruits are fat. Like avocado as a food source is high in fat.
Okay, so
Lettuce isn't. But most vegetables and fruits don't have hardly any fat. There's an exception always.
They don't
They
have
do
a
fat,
fat,
but they
The
have a
fruit
sugar.
vegetables.
They have
have
sugar.
sugar.
Right.
But we have to control it even in the fruits.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Some
depends.
people don't.
I don't have to control. I eat a lot of fruit and it doesn't
I
have
mean,
any
I have
effect
to control.
on.
I'll bet you anything if they did a glucose tolerant and insulin resistance test on you, you would be good. Some people are very insulin resistant. And that can be something that's genetic.
Metabolize food very quickly.
What do you do?
Metabolize food very quickly.
You're
So I'm
lucky.
hungry very frequently.
I'm hungry every
I'm sorry, do
hour.
you spot train? Do you work on specific, if I say, oh, I want to work on my gut, like, do you do that? Or are you of the mind of work everything and everything helps everything else?
Yeah, so there's no such thing as spot reduction. There's only spot production. I can make your arms larger, stronger, your chest, everything, but fat is going to be, God bless you, fat's going to be lost from areas the way your body sees fit to do so. So a lot of the times women will lose fat here first. On their feet, their shoes will actually get looser. The rings go like this. Nothing here has changed. I've had some women lose fat from you know where, and they're really unhappy about it. Before anything else happened, it's just there's no rhyme or reason.
Women have a
It
much
goes from
worse
the
time.
face down.
Women have
Plus
much worse
men
time.
lose weight much faster.
And this is why it's so important for women to weight lift, to strength train, to do something. And again, you don't need a lot of it, but you need to do it. If you're not building muscle tissue, and the older we get, the faster we lose it. And if you're not getting adequate protein and then some, even if you train, you won't get it.
Fred, thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
How do
Thank
we,
you.
I'm gonna buy
how do
this
we
box.
schedule with?
Thank you.